Day one of the largest Pokemon Pocket tournament ever has just wrapped up, and we got to take a look at what is going on because it does not make sense. There are some wild decks that have somehow done incredibly well, and I'm really excited to share them with you. So let's just get right into it. And if you guys are enjoying the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video. I do meta recaps, basically everything to help you keep up to date with the ranked meta to help your ranked grind. So first, I'm going to show you what I played to the event. Now, I did start with a round 1 win, and unfortunately, I was waiting. I had Discord notifications on. I never got the ping for round 2, so I took a loss because I just didn't show up. I was not notified that the round had started. I just thought we went way over time, which sometimes happens on these first rounds in these really big tournaments. And I already didn't really have the time to play in it for the day, so I just dropped after that. But I was going to play Meowscarada Decidueye. So just looking over the meta, it felt like a really good play. I expected a lot of Darkrai Giratina, which this deck does good against. I expected I'd run into some Garchomps to be able to farm those, and I felt fine with the Tapu Lele matchup and the Greninja Oricorio matchup. All felt pretty good to me. And I went with a no Decidueye, or no Rowlet, not Dartrix, no Dartrix build. And the reason for that was Dartrix is going to help me in matchups that are red card, Mars heavy, sure. But those matchups I kind of already farm. Like Darkrai Giratina, I'm not really worried. All I kind of need to do is get a Meowscarada set up online decently quickly, and I can sort of just run through them. And in order to do that, you know, something you guys got to realize about Meowscarada Decidueye is the research is not a play down as soon as you have it card in this deck. Research is meant to be held onto when you need to go look for your combo pieces. You rarely want to play Research turn 1. Unless you truly have nothing and like you're going to lose the game unless you find another basic or something like that. You want to hold the Research for after you've cried for help and gotten your Meowscarada, and then you just need a rare candy. You want to go look for that rare candy. Something like that, but you don't want to play the Research down immediately. So Red Card and Mars has not been as punishing after just realizing, hey, just hold the Research and you're fine. We played 3 heals. 3 heals was really good for the mirror match, which I expected quite a bit. It's just good against a lot of matchups. The Greninja stuff, the Tapu Leles, the Oricorios, having that 3rd heal is just really, really good into that matchup. Gives you a little bit more longevity, another turn to find maybe your second Meowscarada, maybe your Decidueye, whatever you need. It just buys you that little bit of time. Same thing with the Sabrina. The Sabrina can either be used early to give you just another turn, especially in the mirror match, right? They attach to the active Sprigatito. It's a way to come back. If you go first in the mirror match, you need to find some advantage somewhere. And that advantage is either given to you by the 3rd heal that they might not have, but a lot of them are on the 3rd heal. So I took it one step further with the Sabrina. The Sabrina is going to let me potentially get a knockout on a Rowlet or a Sprigatito early, and then I just have 2 Pokemon to go through. Or it's going to let me clean up a KO or just put my opponent in a weird spot. So I really love the Sabrina in this deck. Not having the Dartrix obviously makes the deck a little bit less consistent. But for the matchups I was worried about, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And of course, yeah, I was fine with taking the auto loss to Charizard. Because hopefully I just wouldn't run into too much. Charizard was really the only way of thinking. In this meta, you kind of got to take a loss to something. And if my loss was to Charizard, I felt pretty good with it. Now, let's go over what was the meta game of this tournament. And I'll show you why. Like, this is my thought process. This is what I think about when I try to decide what deck am I going to play for ranked. Or, sorry, for this tournament or for any tournament. What I expected was a lot of Darkrai Giratinas and a lot of Tapu Lele Greninja Giratina EX decks. You look here. 1/3 of the players were these decks. 1/3 of them. When you're picking a deck, you want something that can look at the top 2 decks and take a favorable matchup against one of them and then maybe just a good, fine matchup against the other. There's very few decks that can take a great matchup against the best 2 decks. They're just so different in their playstyle that it's very, very difficult to do to find a deck like that, which is why I went with Meowscarada. I felt fairly confident in the Greninja Tapu Lele matchup, and I felt very good in the Giratina Darkrai EX matchup. Third most was this Arceus. Well, technically not this, not third most. Third most was Decidueyes. And another thing, right? I teched out my list to be good into the Decidueye mirror because I expected a lot of Decidueyes too. And I knew that my list gave me the edge against other Meowscarada Decidueyes. I knew the Sabrina and the 3 heals was going to be enough for me to confidently go into any single one of those games and say, dude, I have a better list against the mirror match. I know I'm going to do fine. I've played a lot of the mirror match. I feel very confident doing so. Greninja Oricorio wasn't even a thought in my head, but it was, you know, one of the more played decks. If you look at it, it was technically the fifth most played deck besides Decidueye variants, Arceus, Crobat, and Greninja Oricorio. So those were the top 5s. And, you know, you gotta just wager and say, hey, I'm gonna take a loss to something down here. Something down here is gonna be a little bit scary to me, and we're just gonna ignore them. Like Garchomp, Rampardos, I never would have played Garchomp Rampardos because the matchup against Giratina Darkrai is not great, and the matchup against Decidueye Meowscarada is also not great, and I expected those to be everywhere. So while Decidueye was going to take a free matchup against the Garchomps, it wasn't really in my planning, and taking the auto loss to Turtonator or Charizards, or very likely auto loss, was also fine because I didn't expect a lot of people to play those. I expected these 3 decks to be the most played, and they were. Arceus Crobat, you know, is also, it's a whatever matchup. It can get scary for sure. If they get quick Carnivine and quick Crobat set up, it gets really, really hard for you, but it can still be done. You know, they need to hit kind of everything turn 1 to start really pressuring you and making you have a bad time. But if you can just hold on and survive that first turn, things are going to be okay. So this was the metagame. This is how my planning went and what I was considering when bringing this to the tournament. Hopefully you guys can now do the same for any future tournaments you might want to attend to. Think about what the top 3 decks are going to be and make your choice for your deck based on that. You will take auto losses, and that's fine. Another, like, why didn't I just play Tapu Lele Greninja? I just didn't want to play mirror matches all day when I didn't feel I could tech my list out in a way to give me the advantage like I could with Decidueye Meowscarada. And it seems like my deck choice was pretty good. There are, in this top 16, you can see here, there are 6 Decidueye Meowscaradas. You can also see there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So let's start talking about these lists and what happened at this tournament. So first, let's just very quickly talk about the only list that went 10-0 during the tournament. It was 10 rounds for day 1. They went 10-0 with Charizard, Incineroar. The only really interesting thing about this is we're now opting for red over Guzma. There are pros and cons, right? Guzma will let you not attack into a rocky helmeted Darkrai, which is okay. It is a good benefit, but if you have the giant cape on the Charizard, it doesn't really matter. As long as he wasn't damaged prior, it's fine, but there are ways around it. Really, the red is slightly more beneficial because it will allow you to take a one-shot on a Garchomp. That's really the biggest thing. There was a decent amount of Garchomp at this tournament. It's probably, you know, you want to get that one shot on the Garchomp. Things can get weird for you. Otherwise, you know, if they get quick Rampardos up, they're swinging for a lot of damage. And it just makes things difficult. So I respect the red now. I used to like the Guzma over the red. But now that Garchomp is everywhere in this meta, I think the red over the Guzma is a good call. So for this tournament, I'm just talking about the top 128 decks. Because those are the people that are moving on to day 2 and actually have a chance of winning the thing today. There are somehow 3 Gengars in top 128, and they're all a little bit different. So this first one, this is the best performing one. I think they're like 4th place right now. They went 9-1. This is the Hypnoblast Gengar, which just puts your opponent to sleep and does 70. You also have the Oricorio as a revenge attacker, which is very good because Gengar will probably be able to put anything into range of Oricorio after the fact. And if you don't have second Gengar up, then the Oricorio is a nice buffer. Attacks for 1 energy. Not hard to set up at all. You can just leave him on the bench. Don't even attach an energy. And when something gets knocked out, he's ready to come up and do, what is it, 80 damage? Does 20 plus 60 more, I believe. I believe it does 80. Yeah, this deck. So it seems like a lot of them played against a lot of Greninja Tapu Lele. Now, I would assume this deck also has a pretty good matchup into Meowscarada. You know, you're not playing any EXs, so Meowscarada is only hitting for 60. You're hitting for slightly more with 70, plus your tools to boost the damage. And you have pretty comparable healing with the double Lily, and you're also putting them to sleep, so they might just miss a turn attacking. You can see why that matchup is really good. The Greninja Tapu Lele one, I mean, a fast Gengar is going to be able to deal with the Tapu Lele. You're going to be able to heal off that damage. You might be able to just pressure them before that Giratina is set up. If you do miss a beat and that Giratina gets set up on the bench, it probably gets pretty scary from there. You're going to be able to go Giratina plus Greninja, knock out the Gengar, no problem. And then your opponent only has like an Oricorio in the back or whatever. It might be a little bit difficult for them to find a way, but they seem to have farmed them. They all took very, very good matchups against that deck, apparently. Darkrai Giratina, I mean, again, you're putting them to sleep quickly, but you still might run into the problem of just not doing enough damage and then being able to get through your attackers quickly. But you also have the Tapu Lele to punish them while they're getting set up and then going into the Gengar and potentially just winning off of sleep. Like, no matter what, you're still always going to have that 50-50 of, I just put my opponent to sleep, they didn't wake up, and now I get another turn out of the game, and that can be really, really bad. That's how we used to play Genetic Apex. That was a lot in the Genetic Apex format. We would use Wigglytuff in some decks to try to put our opponents to sleep and just put the game on a 50-50 and say, hey, I either win or you wake up and I don't. And that was kind of it. But very, very interesting. Let's hop over to the other one. This one is very, very similar. A little bit more teched out. They went for no Haunter, double Tapu Lele, and a lot more tech cards here. So we have Giovanni to boost the damage, none of those damaging tools, only one Lily, and one Guzma to get rid of our opponent's tools. Which one is better? I don't know, man. I didn't even know this deck was a thing, but apparently it is. Apparently it is, and it was a great meta call for the tournament. Now this list I'm about to show you, their matchups were a bit more spread out, right? It's like almost every deck here is different. We got one Darkrai Giratina, a Charizard Turtonator, a Garchomp, a Meowscarada, a couple Arceus Crobats that this one seemed to do better against. This one I might be more on board with, this list, where you're not flipping for sleep. Let me show you this one. So this is kind of interesting, right? Because Gengar does have an EX, meaning we can play 3 Gengars. So your odds of getting rare candy into Gengar are a lot higher early on. And then you kind of just take the Gengar that comes to you. Maybe you get 2 of them, and then you can make your choice. But it's probably pretty important to just get a Gengar out there. I did. I only knew Gengar was, like, maybe a thing because I was playing ranked, and I got locked out turn 2 by the Gengar EX. And I got Marsed into Gengar EX, and I was like, man, this sucks. This really sucks. If you're playing a rare candy deck and they hit you with the hand reset plus supporter lock, do you know how hard that is to come out of? You don't get to research. You don't get to do anything except just draw your top deck. It makes it so much more difficult to get into that rare candy evolution combo, which makes me a little bit more partial to this style list. I also like how you have the Giratina in the back to act as, okay, maybe my opponent set up fine, or they were able to finally piece something together by the end of the game. I need a big attacker. Giratina is going to do that and hit for 130 and clean up the last knockout, or maybe the last 2 knockouts on whatever I wasn't able to finish. But this list is really, really cool. Using the 3 Gengars plus the Giratina in the back, like, I really like this list. I expected, like, when I saw Gengar, I was like, okay, so I guess we were doing the bother Gengar strat to just try to supporter lock, and that would, get us the wins we needed by just not allowing our opponent to really, ever evolve or play the game all that much. But no, it seemed like the regular Hypnoblast Gengar was what was doing fantastic, which is just so surprising and strange to me. I never even considered this deck. And again, I don't even know where it came from. I really don't. It seems like people were probably just prepping for this tournament. I mean, it is a big tournament, right? It's 10K. There's a lot of money on the line. People were definitely going to be sitting there and going, all right, what are people missing? There's a lot of cards available to us. What are people missing? What is going to be able to counter these top decks that I know I'm going to run into. And they did it with Gengar, and it's a super, super interesting thing. So, again, here, you know, these are the list. I really like the style of this one, but it might just be better to run the more consistent one. They all did very well, right? Like, this one did go 9-1, and then these two went 8-2, which is still fantastic in a tournament of this size. So, very, very cool from the Gengar. Let's go check out another weird deck that did fantastic. Now we have Togekiss Tapu Lele. So this is a deck I was familiar with, right? I've run into this on the ladder quite a bit. I mean, quite a bit. One out of every 50 games I might hit a Togekiss. It's not like it's everywhere. But I at least know that people have been using this deck. It's been doing fine in some tournaments every now and then. Togekiss, it's going to take a great matchup against like Meowscarada. You know, again, you're not an EX deck. And your Overdrive Smash is able to do huge, huge damage. You just out-damage Meowscaradas. Fine that way. Getting 160 onto the Togekiss, right, with the giant cape makes it really hard for anything to knock out. This list actually played no healing, which is probably the most surprising thing to me. Because I would think against Tapu Lele, Giratinas, you know, that sort of stuff, you would want the healing so your opponent wasn't able to go Greninja Ping, Guzma the Togekiss, knockout with Giratina, and then, you know, you're kind of out of it there. But we do see here that they played Red Card and Mars. Something I was considering for the tournament as well was just being able to constantly reset my opponent's hand against these stage 2 decks. Yeah, just a cool list, right? Togekiss, I mean, max damage it can do is 170 in a turn with the Cynthia. That's a big extension. That's a really big extension. The Tapu Lele just proves to continually be a really, really good card. It's just great for the early game. You start with that Tapu Lele, and you're just pinging 20 anywhere, setting up knockouts for the Togekiss when it's finally ready to come up and start attacking. And then, again, you see these Psychic decks running that Oricorio to be that revenge attacker in case you just don't have a second Togekiss set up, and Togekiss wasn't able to finish off the last Pokemon. So, very, very cool list. Glad to see that it did so well. I'm sure there were a decent amount of Togekiss players, definitely more than one, but it's good to see that one of them was able to make the run all the way to the top, 128. Now we have Meowscarada Beedril. Now, this is a deck I wrote off. It just was not doing well in tournaments. It wasn't really doing well in my play either, and it looks like this player was able to kind of hit the gauntlet. And I'm not trying to discredit anything, right? Because any tournament is about, hey, this is what I think the meta is going to be. I want to take good matchups against the top decks. And if I just don't hit the bad matchups, I'm going to do well, right? That's how tournaments go. I'm only saying this because if you queue up into ranked, maybe you hit a bit more Charizard than what you want to. Maybe you hit a bit more Meowscarada Decidueye, which it might not be the better matchup for you, right? Like, the Beedrill's fine, but the benefit it loses is you're not able to finish off any KOs that you usually can with Decidueye. You know, you have to run the Cyrus in order to go after something and get it. You know, less heals as well. Probably doesn't do as well into the Meowscarada Decidueye list with the extra heals and all of that. Like you see here, they were able to, I mean, just a clean run. Hitting the Tapu Leles, which is a good matchup, and hitting the Dark Rhytinas, which is also a good matchup. Probably finding a Solgaleo Snorlax if you're just constantly denying the energy and they're never able to attack with the Snorlax, or just, you know, Meowscarada kind of take care of Solgaleo a little bit. But, you know, that's how tournaments happen, and you got to be able to read the tournament results when you're trying to convert them into ranked grind. Because here, something I'll talk about right here. So, the difference is that in ranked, you are going to run into weird decks that you will take a loss to, you know, against stuff that you're not planning for. When you go into a tournament, it's different. You go into a tournament and you say, this is what's going to be the meta. And what will probably happen is you just want to survive the first few rounds. Like, if I could just get past the first few rounds and some of my worst matchups, which are not great decks into the meta as a whole, well, they're gonna naturally lose. I'm gonna get less and less likely to hit them as I go on into the tournament. The tournament run is only going to get better for me as I go forward. In ranked, there's no sort of system that prevents that, right? You could hit Charizard 4 times in a row with this deck, and there's no stopping that, as opposed to a tournament where, well, maybe the Charizards are going to get knocked out a little bit early. They're going to take some early losses because they don't do great against the best deck in the format, and most of them are going to match up against the best deck in the format or the best 2 decks in the format. They're going to start with a loss. If I can just start with a win, I'm going to avoid them. So that's a little bit of a difference between ranked and actual tournaments, and why I try to say these things, so you don't just go into ranked and go, oh, this deck is amazing, it did so well in a tournament, I'm gonna win so many games with it. Well, no, you're gonna hit the bad matchups more often, because again, there's no sort of your opponent lost 1 game, so you're not gonna face them. You know, you're gonna run into bad matchups more often than you will in a tournament if you're preparing correctly for a tournament. So Meow Beedril, still cool to see it. Haven't seen this deck in a really long time. Interesting that they went with no Kakuna and double Beedril here. I mean, this Beedril is just gonna help you against like the Oricorios and stuff. Okay, now look at this. Infernape finally doing something. Infernape Turtonator. I like this, right? So against Tapu Lele decks, there's only a couple ways you lose as a regular old Charizard deck to Tapu Lele. You usually, you want to go for that first Charizard, get it set up. Okay, it's going to take 80 damage from a Tapu Lele after you stoke. That's fine if we have a Lily. If we just have a Lily, we are able to go Lily, and then the Giratina can't knock us out after that. Like Lily plus a cape, and don't even need a cape, but it can help. They're just not going to be able to knock it out if you have that Lily. And Infernape doesn't really have to worry about that at all. Infernape's going to take maybe a turn 1 20 from the Tapu Lele, and then you're going to evolve into Infernape, and you're going to be able to knock out the Tapu Lele, or just knock it out with Turtonator. Either way, you're not building up a lot of energy on the Infernape. You're never really giving them a good Tapu Lele target, so they'll probably just want to set up Giratina on the bench and go for that big knockout on Infernape. But you have the Lily to counter. It's going to take 2 turns of Greninja pings, or 1 turn of Greninja ping, plus a Cyrus Greninja in order to knock out the Infernape. You can try to limit that with the red card. You can limit that 1 turn with the Lily while your Turtonator is just taking knockout after knockout in the active spot. It just seems like a cool deck that is good into this big Tapu Lele meta. Now, Tapu Lele was only the 2nd most played deck. You still have Darktinas to worry about, but I think they played against, 1 Darkrai Giratina and was able to get it done. You have answers there, right? If you just set up Infernape fast, well, it's going to be able to get through the first Darkrai, no problem. Or you could just go red and knock out the Giratina in front of you. There are answers here. It's not like it takes an auto loss to Darkrai Giratina. It seems to be fairly fine into it. But a lot of these Greninja Giratinas, it seemed to do well against. And also, it's just a fire deck. It means that your Decidueye Meowscarada matchup is going to be pretty good. The Turtonator is going to deal with them early game, or the Infernape is going to deal with like the Meowscarada immediately. You have a lot of ways here to get through your opponent's threat very aggressively. So it seems like a good meta call. I like the Infernape. Is it better than Charizard Incineroar? I don't know, but it still seems to be, powerful enough, takes good matchups against the Tapu Lele and the other top decks. Okay, so we have a Gallade Rampardos, and something interesting, right? They went 8-0-2, but if you look at their line, they went 8-0 and then just ID'd the last 2 rounds, which is what you should do. If you're 8-0, you're already guaranteed to make it in top 128. You don't have to play out the last 2 rounds. You just take an ID, intentional draw, and then your record's good enough to get into that top 128. It doesn't matter. Now, look at their run, though. They hit a lot of Charizard. A lot of Charizard. Probably pretty good for this deck. Gallade is going to swing for 170 damage into a Charizard. 150 if they just stoked and you hit them once. It's going to be really hard for them to respawn, knock out the Gallade because they need their red in order to do so. With a giant cape, it's just not going to be possible. They can't go red and Guzma in the same turn. Even if Gallade doesn't get through the first Charizard, which would be, odds are not in your opponent's favor, you still have the Granados or the Rampardos to finish up the KO. And then you're saying to your opponent, hey, you have to get both of your stage 2s online before I get my stage 2 plus my stage 1 or stage 2 plus stage 2 set up. And you then have to go, stoke again to get it set up. And you can just do that a little bit more consistently. You're running the 2-2 line. They're running the 2-1 line. You know, it's hard for them to find the Incineroar line. It's hard for them to find the second Charizard line. Much more difficult than you finding 2 separate stage 2 lines. So, just seems like a great matchup there. And this guy was able to really, you know, take advantage of that. And got, you know, obviously got lucky. Ran into a lot of Charizards and was able to farm that. Probably does better against Decidueye Meowscarada. I don't think it's still great, but at the very least, your Garchomp or your, you know, Gabites and Gibbles aren't taking terrible damage from the grass stuff as well. You know, Curlia at least can survive a Meowscarada attack into a Gallade. Probably still not a great matchup for you because you are in just an EX deck. Yeah, a standard EX deck that doesn't get to one-shot the Meowscaradas. Darkrai Giratina is always tricky for this deck. This guy did not face any of them, but it is always tricky because they are usually able to respond KO to a Gallade after he gets the one knockout. But maybe with the Rampardos, you're just kind of able to push through that and leave the Gallade as the, hey, this is the end of the game option to knock out the Giratina after my Rampardos has taken out a Darkrai. Because Gallade's going to be able to trade favorably into a Darkrai at the beginning of the game, and is going to be able to trade favorably into a Giratina at the end of the game, granted that it was not damaged in any way. No healing in this deck. No healing at all. But just very cool to see Gallade stick around in the meta, right? I thought of it as maybe just worse Garchomp, but as the meta has developed, I don't love Garchomp as a play anymore. It just takes a bad matchup to Darkrai Giratina. There's not a lot of hope there, but this deck at least has hope against that. So I kind of like the Gallade more than the Chomp for that reason alone. The fact that you're taking a better matchup into Darkrai Giratina seems fine to me. Tapu Lele, I'm sure, is a little bit difficult. The Giratina, they're going to be able to Cyrus plus Greninja Pings on the Gallade and make quick work of that. But if you have a giant cape, they're not going to be able to do it all at once. So yeah, just a really, really interesting deck. Glad to see it do well here. So now we have the only Solgaleo to make it into top 128. Could imagine when this set first dropped and I told you the largest tournament would have 1 Solgaleo in day 2 and 3 Gengars. You wouldn't believe me. You simply could not believe me. So this is the Solgaleo list. They did very, very well in the tournament. Actually, their run is kind of crazy. You go over here, you look at the matches. Look at all the fire they were able to get through, okay? Just getting through 3 fires with this deck is kind of nuts. These are best of 3s, so it takes a little bit of the variance out of it. But being able to, I mean, that's just crazy. That's crazy to me. They did take a loss to a Charizard finally, but this was the guy who went 10-0. Also did well against all of these Giratina Greninjas. A big thing you'll see is a lot of these decks seem to be targeting Giratina Greninjas, and we're all doing well. Little bit of off meta stuff for, you know, these weirder decks that did fine. I personally still don't think Solgaleo is like a great meta call. I mean, obviously props to this guy for doing so well with it. It's just a good call. Hoping that you hit a lot of the Tapu Lele Greninjas and was able to do it. I know he was sweating every time. Imagine you're playing Solgaleo round 1, fire deck. Oh, barely beat it. All right, we're good. Round 2 comes up, another fire deck. Round 3 comes up, another fire deck. Dude, you must have been so upset. I would be. But he was able to get it done. So great job. And this list actually is going for the 4 tools, which I like. I think Giant Cape is really important and probably what was able to help him through the fire decks. Without the Giant Cape, Solgaleo is just going to get return knocked out by a Charizard, and that's no good. That's no good. If you're able to let that Giant Cape sit on the Solgaleo, you know, they don't Guzma it, or they don't have the red in hand to just take that knockout through the Solgaleo after it's damaged itself by 10. Yeah, that would be the perfect math. If you can just survive that one turn, the Solgaleo is going to get through the Charizard. You know, you're asking a lot for them. You have your 2 Giant Cape to find. They have to have their 1-of supporter on that exact turn. You just have to find the Giant Cape at some point. And the Solgaleo is going to live through the Charizard attack And from there, you know, again, they're not really playing Guzmas. It seemed they went on to the Reds. The Solgaleo is going to be able to knock out the Charizard. And then after that, you know, you can either have Skarmory clean up like a Charmander if your Solgaleo somehow gets knocked out by the Charmander. And it's just going to be good for you. So very interesting. Like, no Lilies and 4 tools, 2 of them being Giant Capes. Recognizing that Giant Cape onto the Solgaleo is so important. Boosting its health. I'm going to take this list. I'm going to go into ranked with it because I love Solgaleo. I wish it was better because, again, I still don't think it's a great meta call, but this list seems cool, and I'm going to be playing it in ranked. We talked about it a lot, so I figured I might as well show you the list. They're all pretty much the same. Like, these are the top 2 placing list, and although the order of the cards are different, it's the exact same list. We seem to be going 1 Pokemon Center Lady, 1 Mars, 1 Communication, 1 Giant Cape, Double Cyrus. Of course, you need the Double Cyrus. No Frogadiers, nothing like that. Just banking on the Greninja Rare Candy in hand. This seems to be the agreed upon list for Tapu Lele, at least for this tournament. This was the list that I was playing with as well. You know, did well at previous tournaments. Just seems like the way to play it. Now, I would assume both of these players, it doesn't tell you here. There's no energy, you know, upload your energy requirement for this tournament, but I would assume they were playing just Psychic Energy. Maybe because you don't have to declare your energy, you're allowed to switch it. So maybe if you ran into something where you would want the Water Energy for Greninja, you could. You know, maybe Greninja or a Choreo, you might want the Water Energy to give you that option of Greninja attacking. Because in that matchup, Greninja is just a better attacker than the Tapu Lele into the Oricorios. It's going to be able to get through them a lot faster than Tapu Lele. Maybe they were doing some switching like that. Because, again, you're not required to stick to 1 energy, and they don't have a way to enforce it because you don't have to declare it. But I would assume for most matchups, you're just doing Psychic only, and maybe you can change it as you go. Could be a benefit to playing a potentially dual energy deck for these styles of tournaments, that you're able to switch them. A lot of the other tournaments, though, they make you declare the energy right at the beginning, so you're not able to do that. But the Ursa Day Pocket Weeklies, they've always, they've never required the energy. So I'm not clear on the rules, but I've never seen something in there that says you have to stick to the energy. And if you did have to stick to the energy, I think they would just make you enforce it, because it is something you can just include in your deck list, and it's you know, very easy to do. It's not like it's some sort of massive technical overhaul to the tournament structure to make that happen. But yeah, Tapu Lele, I mean, it was probably the scariest deck for the tournament, right? It's a very powerful deck, and if you are, it's really, the skill gap on this deck is huge. This is one of the more skill-intensive decks, if not the most skill-intensive deck in the format. There are so many choices every turn. When am I supposed to be using Tapu Lele? When am I supposed to take the turn off to set up Giratina with Broken Space Bellow? There's a lot that goes into this deck and this game plan, and if you're just a really, really good player, you're going to be able to come out ahead in even some slightly unfavored matchups by just navigating them better than your opponent. So it's a really scary deck to get matched up against in a tournament. Terrifying deck. Terrifying to play on ladder. Everything about it. It's just a really, really scary deck. So I respect the call. I respect the call. These people that felt they were confident enough in the mirror match to go forward with it, and just, you know, if they found a mirror match, they felt fine. They felt like they could navigate it better than their opponent. Much respect to these guys who did so well with the Tapu Lele Greninja. Real quick before I end the video, shout out Sekarau. Longtime viewer, and he has done very well. 8-2, also with Meowscarada. Slightly different list than what I was playing, but great run. I'm hoping I'm saying your name right. A lot of people, a lot of you guys, I just kind of look at the letters, and I don't really form like a sound in my head for it. It's just, I just read it, you know? I read it, but I don't ever say it out loud, and then when I have to say it out loud, I'm like, oh no, I don't know how to do this, man. I don't know how to do this. I've never tried this before. But again, shout out Sekarau. Doing very, very good in the tournament with the Decidueye. Very, very proud of him. Let me know if any of you guys did well in the tournament. I'm curious to hear from you. Very, very curious. I want to know if any Tilly TCG viewers have done well in the tournament. And good luck to you guys in day 2. All right, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you sub, like the video. Have a good one.